With the arrival of night, silence fell over the haunted house like a blanket. Suddenly, a weird sound like someone was sawing something shattered the peaceful quiet. In the staff break room, Chenji's eyes slowly peeled open. He glanced at the phone. It was 1:10 a.m. He turned to bury his head under the pillow, but the weird sound kept drilling itself into his ears. Am I dreaming? Who is making all that noise? Every single prop in the haunted house was handmade or upgraded by Chenji, so he knew that no prop in the building would make a sawing sound. After only 6 hours of sleep, Chenji was still feeling a bit blurry. He pinched the inside of his leg hard to wake himself up before putting on his clothes and grabbing an iron hammer out of the nearby toolbox. He switched on the flashlight and pushed the door of the break room open. The haunted house at midnight was many times scarier than it was during daytime. Chenji leaned against the door, not in a hurry to go out. Can't be a burglar. Would any sane person choose to rob a haunted house near midnight? Can't be the rats either. The sound of their chewing wouldn't be so loud and clear. After vetoing these two normal possibilities, Chenji's mind wandered toward the not-so-normal possibility. Could it be that the monster has escaped from the mirror? Due to a lack of cloth, not all the mirrors on the third floor's murder by midnight scenario were covered up. He stared down the darkened hallway and retreated back into the break room. He only dared wander out after grabbing the doll his parents left behind for him. The sound came from above, so Chenji followed the sound up the stairs before stopping at the door to the murder by midnight scenario. As I expected, it's coming from here, but now it's unclear whether the source is the lingering spirits from Ping'an Apartments or the mirror monster. Chenji hesitated at the door. Honestly, he too was not that willing to enter a scary scenario so late at night. However, allowing himself to be tortured by the sawing sound was not a valid solution either. Chenji gripped the hammer in his hand and said in his heart, I have the Spectre's favored title and have received the goodwill from the residents of Ping'an Apartments' lingering spirits. Therefore, even if it is the thing from inside the mirror, it won't be able to do me much harm. He was reminded of what happened to He-san. It was Xiao Wan's sudden appearance that ruined the thing's plan, so in a way, the monster probably was not as powerful as he made it out to be. I have to go in. After all, I'll need to deal with it eventually. The more I know about it, the greater the confidence I'll have in dealing with it. Chenji calmed himself down. He told himself he was not afraid of the monster itself but rather the unknown it represented. After pushing open the door, a faded smell of mold drifted into Chenji's nose. This place was getting closer to the actual environment of Ping'an Apartments by the hour. The room doors on both sides of the corridor were half closed. Chenji held the phone in one day while the other grabbed hold of the hammer. The sound of sawing intensified, a sign that Chenji was getting close to the truth. He walked through the entire third floor before stopping at the door that he was sure the sawing sound was coming from. The room door was closed, and as Chenji placed his palm over the doorknob, the icy feeling of steel jolted him awake. His muscles tensed as he shoved the door open. Who's in here? Chenji yelled as he dashed into the room with the iron hammer raised high. He saw a well-built dark shadow half-squatting inside the toilet. It looked suspiciously like He-feng. The black shadow did not expect the interruption. It dropped what it was holding and jumped inside the mirror and disappeared. Stop right there. Chenji screamed as he waved the hammer. It only made contact with air. The toilet was now empty, like everything that he had just seen was an illusion. That shadow can't be He-feng. Why would it have a similar build to He-feng standing before the mirror? Chenji looked at his reflection, and he felt weirdly uncomfortable. This monster is mimicking He-feng. But why would it do that? The appearance of the black shadow brought many questions, but it also answered two for Chenji. 1. The mirror monster had now gained the ability to leave the mirror. 2. It could morph into the person who once looked inside the mirror. This thing is more dangerous than I thought. The sawing sound that echoed through the building had finally stopped. Chenji squatted down to examine what the black shadow had dropped earlier. 4 rag dolls and several sharp mirror pieces were littered on the rough-hewn cement floor. Chenji held the dolls in his palms. The dolls that represented the mother and 2 sisters were fine, other than the normal dust and mud that covered their bodies. However, the doll that represented the father had its neck almost sawn off, and there were cuts all over its body. Why is the father doll the only one that's injured? However, Chenji soon realized why. The father doll helped He-feng escape from the monster's clutches, so this was an act of vengeance. It seems like the 4 lingering spirits aren't strong enough to stop the monster inside the mirror, so they could only allow themselves to be bullied by it. Chen Ji had no idea about the situation of the other world, so he could only come up with the explanation from all his previous observations. The victims have no attack methods other than scaring people. The mirror monster is at least one level higher than the lingering spirits of the victims, but it runs whenever it is around humans. This means that the monster's physical combat ability is rather weak as well. Its main method of attack is psychological, manipulating people's internal weakness to create an illusion and then take control of them. Combining He San and He Feng's experience as well as what happened earlier, Chen Ji came up with this hypothesis. The mirror monster was troublesome, but if Chen Ji could face it in person, then most of its power would be void. Therefore, if Chen Ji managed to lure the monster out of the protection of the mirror, everything would be easy. I need to figure out a plan. If possible, I wish to take care of it tonight so that I'll be able to use this scenario tomorrow. Chen Ji was cool and collected. The monster inside the mirror was acting more and more wantonly, so if he did not deal with it soon, he would not be able to operate the haunted house peacefully. Chen Ji hugged the 4 dolls in his arms as he left the murder by midnight scenario. He locked the door behind him before going to the props room. As he sewed the cuts back up, he tried to come up with a plan. The creature is highly aggressive and seems to have a curious interest in live humans. So the simplest way of luring it out of the mirror is to use a live human as bait. Chen Ji was a master seamstress because he patched up most of the injuries in just a few minutes. But the real question is, after I've lured it out, how do I kill it? Rumors say that ghosts are all afraid of salt and garlic, but must I risk my life to try out such hearsay? Chen Ji thought about it before deciding to log into the supernatural forums to ask the experts. After logging in, Chen Ji noticed his username had changed into a purple color. Clicking on his account profile, he realized it was because the 30-minute video that he had posted the other day had been shared, viewed, recommended, and commented at least several thousand times already. With a cursory glance, Chen Ji found nothing useful. Most of them were there simply due to curiosity. Who knows, perhaps this might work, maybe there are experts hiding on the internet. Chen Ji started writing a new thread to provide more information about the mirror monster and used the special power afforded purple accounts to open a bounty thread. After playing the game on the video, I realized I'm now being haunted by the creature inside the mirror. Asking for help on how to remove this threat. The replies came pouring in mere seconds later. OP, you're still alive. A black dog's blood is the best solution, or rear a cock. Legend says all the bad stuff are afraid of cocks. OP, listen to me and call this number. Tell them you need help, you can thank me later. Ghosts are nothing but memories that were left behind in the physical world. Killing it will only earn you bad karma. Kindness goes a long way. OP, have you tried reasoning with it? Education is the best solution. If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. If there's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Mix yellow bean, white rice, and Indian ink together. Soak them in salt water for 15 minutes. Spread them on the ground to watch them grow into powerful bean warriors. I once saw a video that described the story of a man who was also haunted by a female ghost. To deal with her, he bought a gun, and when the female ghost returned that night, the man shot himself and later dragged the ghost into the bedroom too. OP, serious though, listen to me, this method will definitely work. Go find an iron sword, preferably one that has tasted blood before. Ghosts are nothing but special magnetic energy, and such a sword will be able to harm them. Chen Ji scrolled through the comments, and only the iron sword seemed somewhat plausible, the others were merely trolling or impossible to accomplish. He also knew about the traditional legends regarding the exorcism power of a black dog's blood and cocks, but where was he going to find such things in the middle of the night? After leaving the forum, Chen Ji tossed his phone to the side, spacing out as he sat in his chair. Combating the mirror monster meant putting his life on the line. He definitely could not rely on these half-baked online suggestions. After a roundabout detour, Chen Ji pulled out the black phone again. He knew he had to rely on the black phone because it was the only thing that was trustworthy. However, the black phone operated on the law of equivalent exchange. To gain something of equal value had to be lost. After several days of trial and error, Chen Ji had gained some understanding regarding the hidden laws of the black phone, such as its mission reward structure. Easy and normal missions rewarded items that would supplement the operation of the haunted house. Only nightmare missions would provide rewards that were directly beneficial to Chen Ji, like special powers. In other words, to deal with the creature inside the mirror, completing easy and normal missions were pointless. He needed the reward from the nightmare mission. However, Chen Ji was hesitant because he knew how dangerous Nightmare Mission, he could easily attract another dangerous specter on top of the mirror monster. What should I do? Take the stakes or wait a little while longer? It was then that Chen Ji realized it was already a new day, meaning the daily missions had been refreshed. Easy mission. If you want to provide the visitors a scary experience, then first you have to pay notice to the rhythm and tempo of their experience in the haunted house. Setting off the scare too early might cause the visitors to lose their interest, so it is suggested that you install some sound detectors or surveillance cameras in the haunted house to keep track of your visitors' progress. Normal mission. You've achieved the criteria to enable the first expansion of the haunted house. Search for a suitable location soon. Due to the current space limitation, you are unable to perform any trial missions to unlock scenarios. Nightmare Mission. There are weird sounds coming from the bathroom every midnight. If you want to know why, follow my directions. Daily missions will refresh every day at midnight. User can only apply for one mission each day, and the reward corresponds to the difficulty of the mission. Beware. The more difficult the mission, the more dangerous it'll be, so please choose carefully. Chen Ji read the mission descriptions. Since he temporarily could not complete the normal mission, he skipped it. Thus, he was left with the choice of the easy mission or nightmare mission. When Uncle Shu gets me the money tomorrow morning, it should take less than a day to purchase all the necessary surveillance, but it'll take more than that to install it all. According to the description, the nightmare mission is related to the bathroom. It sounds creepy. Chen Ji was caught between a rock and a hard place. He was not confident that he could finish the easy mission, and even if he did, the reward would not be that great. However, the nightmare mission was too dangerous. After all, it all started inside the bathroom. He sat mired in his thoughts inside the props room. Before he came to a decision, the sound of sawing came again, this time more distracting than before. Chen Ji titled his head back and was sure that the source was again the third floor. I've already carried out all 4 of the dolls, what else is it cutting? Chen Ji found the creature increasingly irksome. After putting the sewn dolls back into his pocket, he rushed up the stairs to the 3rd floor holding his trusty hammer. When he arrived at the entrance to the murder by midnight scenario, he was shocked by what he saw. There were mirror pieces lying around the entrance, and there were scratch marks on the wooden door. The creature has been clawing at the door. What is it up to? Chen Ji's back was covered with cold sweat. He could imagine a monster holding the mirror pieces while running around the building when he was asleep. He would never allow such a dangerous existence to live under the same roof as him. Normally a nice guy, Chen Ji had sour expression at that moment. He locked the door to the murder by midnight scenario behind him and walked down the corridor, gripping the hammer. He stalked into every room to shatter every mirror he could find on the 3rd floor. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the night. Chen Ji felt more like himself when he reached the end of the 3rd floor corridor. During the first nightmare mission, the creature was held back by the doll who sat before the mirror. When it was attacking He-san, it had to retreat when Xiao Wan strode into the room. However, after assaulting He-fang, it gained the ability to leave the mirror. It's growing, and it's growing fast. Chen Ji knew he could not wait anymore. His haunted house was finally on its way back, and he could not allow it to be ruined by an unknown creature. After leaving the scenario and locking the door once more, Chen Ji switched on the black phone to accept the nightmare mission with a do-or-die determination. Hopefully the reward for this mission will be powerful enough. Are you sure you wish to accept the nightmare mission? After acceptance, unknown circumstances might occur. Yes. The screen glowed, and the actual nightmare mission description started to surface. The specters favored, your courage is admirable. The nightmare mission this time is both a test and a reward. The name of the game is Deep Water. It can allow you to bypass the line between the living and the dead, giving you the opportunity to see those who have unfortunately passed away. Mission requirement: enter the bathroom alone at 3:30 a.m. Lock the door and turn off the lights. Fill up the tub with water and light a candle by the side before lying in it. The period between 3:30 and 3:40 a.m. is the time of a day when yin energy is most concentrated. It is also when the yin and yang cycle of the day converge. What you need to do is hold your breath at 3:44 a.m. and submerge yourself underwater, thinking about the name of the person you wish to meet the most. When time enters the twilight period between darkness and light, you'll be able to see them at the edge of living and dead. Mission will be accomplished if you see said individuals. If you do not, the mission will be automatically completed after holding your breath for 60 seconds. Chen Ji had a complicated feeling after reading the mission description. Compared to the first nightmare mission, this mission seemed a lot simpler. Closing one's eyes for 30 minutes in a scary environment required superhuman courage and staunch constitution, but holding one's breath for 60 seconds seemed doable for most. However, it was exactly because it was doable by most that he was worried. This was a nightmare mission, it could not be that simple. Similar to the previous nightmare mission, the location is the bathroom, but the difference is that I'm required to sink myself inside the bathtub and hold my breath for 60 seconds. He carefully studied every single step of the mission, including the preparation time. At most, the mission would require 15 minutes. What scary thing could possibly happen in such a short amount of time? Chen Ji was interested not only because the mission looked simpler but also due to a line among the mission description, allow you to bypass the line between the living and the dead, giving you the opportunity to see those who have unfortunately passed away. Different from most, Chen Ji became calmer during periods of duress. He sat in his chair, contemplating the possibilities. His parents had disappeared in an abandoned countryside hospital, leaving behind nothing but a doll and the black phone. The black phone was activated when he was about to give up on the haunted house. During the first nightmare mission, the doll became the thing that saved his life. So, the question worth pondering was, could the doll and the black phone have been purposely left behind by his parents to act as clues to their whereabouts? If that was true, then this second nightmare mission would be additionally interesting. Perhaps, they're trying to contact me through this method to provide me with more information. Of course, this was merely Chen Ji's speculation. To be perfectly honest, even if the nightmare mission was not a plan set up by his parents, Chen Ji would carry on with this mission. Allow you to bypass the line between the living and the dead, giving you the opportunity to see those who have unfortunately passed away. For Chen Ji, this was a chance to confirm once and for all whether his parents were still alive or not. If he did not see his parents, then it meant that they were merely missing and still alive. If he did see them, then it would validate Chen Ji's first speculation: his parents left the black phone behind for a purpose, probably as a channel to siphon information to him. Perhaps the black phone even contained his parents' actual last words. Looks like I have no choice. Chen Ji glanced at his watch. It was already 2:55 a.m., 35 minutes until the starting time of the mission. I've wasted too much time shattering those mirrors on the third floor, I've got to hurry. The mission requirement was for him to lie in a bathtub filled with water, but the only bathroom with a bathtub was inside the murder by midnight scenario. One of the doors of the workers' passageway was connected to a bathroom with a bathtub. It was the trap door Chen Ji had been using to enter the scenario and to shuttle He-san's group out of the scenario. There are only 35 minutes left. There isn't enough time to go look for a hotel with a bathtub, so it looks like I'll need to do this within the mirror monster's territory. Since the decision had been made, Chen Ji no longer hesitated. He carried the 4 dolls with him and exited the haunted house in the middle of the night to head toward the park's canteen to grab 2 cleavers. Even though these haven't been used to slaughter pigs or sheep before, I did see the workers use them to prepare chicken and fish. I suppose you can consider them blades that have tasted blood before. Chen Ji placed the blades beside his nose to take a sniff. Instead of the expectant smell of bloodshed, all he could smell was the heavy scent of green chilies and onions, which caused his eyes to water. After returning to the haunted house, Chen Ji ran between the fake bathroom and the toilet, carrying buckets of water. When it was 10 minutes to the start of the mission, he finally managed to fill up the tub. Everything is ready, it's time to start. The murder by midnight scenario's front door was closed, and Chen Ji entered the bathroom from the workers' passageway. As demanded by the black phone, he was inside the bathroom alone. The mirror inside the bathroom had already been shattered by Chen Ji. The pieces made scrunching noises as his footsteps shuffled over them. It was quite noisy transporting the water, so the mirror monster should know about my presence by now, but that doesn't matter. I only need to hold my breath for 1 minute and everything will be fine. From Chen Ji's perspective, the mission was weird but not that dangerous. He locked the bathroom's door from within and rested the doll left behind by his parents against the door. Then, he placed the 4 rag dolls that represented the lingering spirits of Ping and apartment's victims around the bathtub. Everyone, I'll be depending on your help later. Please help me fight for that 1 minute. Similar to before, he switched on his phone's recording camera and placed it on a suitable table to start the recording. However, the place was so dark that the screen was almost black, except for a fuzzy human-shaped shadow. At the 3-minute mark, Chen Ji removed the contents from his pockets and placed them on the counter. Following the black phone's instructions, he lit a candle and stuck it to the bathtub's rim. The dancing candlelight became the sole source of light in the room. Glancing downwards, Chen-ji saw his faces reflected in the many mirror pieces that littered the floor. He removed his shirt and took a step toward the bathroom. Ripples could be seen breaking the water's surface. The bathtub was shallow, but due to the dim lighting, Chen-ji found himself unable to see the bottom. Touching the water with his fingers, a chill ran up his arm and spread through his body, causing him to shiver. This mission sure is freaky. After taking one last look at the time, Chen-ji stepped into the tub while holding the two cleavers. As he sat down, the water overflowed, drenching the mirror pieces. FCK, it's cold. Chen-ji could feel his body temperature dropping, even his heart rate had slowed. The bathroom was quiet except for the dripping sound of water that fell down from the edge of the bathtub. Just 1 minute, after this 1 minute, I'll have the reward, and the most important question on my mind will be answered. Chen-ji breathed in and out to control his heart rate, waiting for 3:44 a.m. to arrive. Inside the darkened bathroom, Chen-ji sat alone inside the bathtub. He breathed in and out, circulating the air inside his lungs. The time noted on the black phone was precisely 3:42 a.m. He only had one chance, so he had to be careful. The room was quiet, and he could not hear anything from outside the corridor. The monster from the mirror did not seem to be around. Time ticked by. Chen-ji put the electronic watch he had brought purposely for this occasion on his side. When the digits changed to 3:43, he trained his focus and opened his mouth wide to slowly take in his breath. As the candlelight flickered, Chen-ji slowly submerged his body into the water. His eyes were glued to the electronic watch. He had never been so focused in his life before. When the digit changed again, Chen-ji slipped underneath the water surface without hesitation. It was finally 3:44 a.m. The icy water flooded him from all sides. Submerging oneself in a bathtub filled with water in the middle of the night, the experience was unique to say the least. The water numbed the senses, and it felt like there was nothing but darkness and oneself slowly falling into the abyss. There was complete silence other than the pounding of one's heart inside one's ears. The icy water pulled every sensory receptor in one's body taut. Lying inside the bathtub, Chen-ji abandoned all thoughts as he listened to his heartbeat and started the countdown. 60 seconds, I only need to hold on for 60 seconds. This was the first time he had done something like this as well. The surface of the water seemed to merge with the darkness. The candlelight, which felt like it was going out, drifted away from Chen-ji like he was slowly falling into the ocean. 1, 2. After the initial 10 seconds, time seemed to have slowed down. The sound of water attempted to swallow even his heartbeat. All he could see was darkness. Chen-ji repeated his parents' names in his heart and held his pose with both his hands holding the cleavers and allowing his body to be carried along by the flow of the water. The oxygen in his lungs was fast depleting. Chen-ji was starting to feel uncomfortable, like something heavy was pressing down on his body. 15, 16. Every time his heart pumped, it exhausted the oxygen inside his lungs. As his heart slowed, so did the time. Every second felt like an eternity. The feeling of discomfort intensified. It felt like a pair of hands was pressing down on his neck, slowly tightening around it. Chen-ji opened his eyes, but underneath the water, he was unable to see anything. It felt like he had traveled to another world and was trapped in it. 3 or 4 seconds later, his face turned startlingly white. How long has it been? Should be over soon, right? Suddenly, there was a violent ripple that crossed the surface, and a weird sound crossed through the heavy silence. The sound seemed to come from the outside corridor. Chen-ji had no idea how he managed to hear it so clearly. Perhaps it was something done on purpose to distract his focus. Footsteps. Someone is walking outside the corridor. His heartbeat, which had slowed, started to race, and his body tensed involuntarily. That is probably the mirror monster. Hopefully the dolls will be able to hold it off for another 30 seconds for me to finish the mission. His brain slowed to a crawl, and a buzzing sound appeared in his ears. Chen-ji was not doing so well, and the footsteps from the corridor only made it worse. He tried his best to focus and continued to repeat his parents' names internally as he returned to counting his heartbeat. 28, 29. Chen-ji was unable to tell whether it was the water that had distorted the sound, but he swore the footsteps had begun to speed up, as if the opposite party was desperately trying to get into the bathroom. Several seconds later, Chen-ji felt like a heavy piece of boulder was falling on top of his chest. The blood vessels on his neck started to pop, his limbs were going weak with cold. His brain was slowing down, and only Chenji's determination was making him hold on. Bang. Bang bang. Ba-bang. Something slammed into the bathroom door without warning. Chenji felt like his heart was in a vice. The thing outside the door had lost its patience. The opponent gave up after slamming the door a few more times. Perhaps it was the doll behind the door that had saved Chenji again. Silence returned to the room. Everything reverted to normal, or as normal as it could have been considering the circumstances. Normally, Chenji could easily hold his breath for a minute, but the footsteps from the corridor and the slamming on the doors had broken his composure. The degree of oxygen exhaustion increased when an animal was in distress. He knew he was reaching his limit. The last wisp of oxygen inside his lungs had been depleted. Every second was torment. 39, 40. When he counted to 40, Chenji's brain started to shut down. He had lost the ability to even keep the countdown going. If he allowed the little focus that he had left to waver, Chenji was sure he would drown. The sense of asphyxiation blotted out his thoughts, and all that remained in his head were his childhood memories with his parents. A vein was pulsing weakly on Chenji's neck, and his hands that held the cleaver started to relax. He felt himself drifting toward the edge of death, and it was not until then that he truly understood the meaning of that sentence inside the mission description. It can allow you to bypass the line between the living and the dead, giving you the opportunity to see those who have unfortunately passed away. What it really meant was, as night changed into day, those on the brink of death could peer into the other world. Chenji stared unblinkingly at the surface of the water. His pupils were dilated, and it felt like he was pulling away from the surface. However, he could not see anything or anyone other than darkness, a darkness that was so quiet and yet filled with so much despair. The feeling of one's lungs being squeezed by an invisible hand was a sensation that could not be put into words. No, if I stay down here any longer, I really will die in this bathtub. He believed he had survived half a minute already, and the people that Chenji wanted to see had not appeared. He had given up hope, or rather, he was glad that his parents did not appear. This meant that they were still alive. His arms touched the cold surface of the bathtub's bottom. Using the last vestige of rationality, Chenji decided it was time to give up. His arms increased in strength to push himself out of the water when Chenji felt something was wrong. Something was pressing down on his head, stopping him from coming up to the surface. His dilated pupils focused to one point as Chenji looked up, but there was nothing there. The dolls had sealed the door in the area surrounding the bathtub. The mirror monster should not have been able to come in, so who was behind this? More veins started to pop on Chenji's neck. His face was pretty much lifeless. At the very last minute, he used the last trace of energy in his body to grip the cleaver and wave it above his head. The extended period of oxygen deprivation had pushed his body and spirit to their limits. Like a string pulled taut, they could snap at any moment. The cleaver cut through the surface, causing the water to splash all around. Chenji felt like he made contact with something, and he heard a crisp snap beside his ears before the mysterious force above his head suddenly disappeared. Without hindrance, Chenji sat up in the bathtub immediately, gasping for air as he broke the surface. Chilling water slid down Chenji's hair. He was reeling from the fact that he had come so close to death. His chest was pumping unevenly, his lips turning from pale to purple, his hands still gripping the cleavers. He felt more collected 2 minutes later, and the lightheadedness dissolved. Wiping the water droplets from his face, Chenji stood up unsteadily from the bathtub. With the weak light of the candle, he could see that nothing had changed inside the bathroom. I swear I managed to cut something earlier. There was that snap too. Chenji looked around him and saw a cut left on the edge of the tub. Did I accidentally cut the tub? That shouldn't be it. There was definitely someone holding my head down in the water earlier, and the cleaver should have cut that person. Desperate to know the truth, Chenji climbed out of the tub to grab the phone that was still recording. He stopped the recording and replayed it from the start. At 3:30 a.m., I sat inside the bathtub, and nothing happened on screen until 3:43 a.m. Chenji leaned against the wall as his eyes glued themselves to the screen. At 3:44 a.m., he lay down in the tub, causing the water to overflow. Looking at it from another perspective, this does look rather creepy. When he was doing this in person, Chenji did not feel like it was all that odd, but looking at it through the camera's lens, there was something chillingly bizarre about this. Chenji glanced at the timestamp. For the initial 20 seconds after he submerged himself, everything was normal inside the bathroom. There was the occasional sound of water dripping. 10 seconds later, Chen Ji frowned. The video that was playing on screen was showing a different reality than he remembered. Based on his memory, by then, the footsteps should have been heard from the corridor, but it was absolutely peaceful on the screen. The audio did not pick up anything weird, definitely no sound of footsteps. 5 seconds later, the door slamming that Chen Ji remembered clearly also did not show up on screen. All that was captured on the video was the darkened surface of the water and the dancing candlelight. The footsteps and door slamming were all parts of my hallucination. When 50 seconds had passed, the originally peaceful water surface was disturbed by a copious amount of air bubbles. It was obvious that the Chen Ji in the video was close to his limits. However, right then, something happened on the screen that made chills crawl all over Chen Ji's body. There was a piece of shattered mirror the size of a palm lying beside the bathtub. Its surface started to cloud over like it had been swallowed by a dark fog. Eventually, a black shadow slowly extended itself from it. It leaned against the tub. The scene was definitely supernatural. Based on its build and features, it looked like He-Feng. The number of air bubbles started to increase, and the video was about to reach its climax. In the video, Chen Ji's body and mind were tested to their limits already, and he was about to give up. Chen Ji could see himself inside the tub moving upwards. However, just as his head was about to break the surface, the black shadow beside the tub suddenly reached out with both of its hands to press on his head. The shock caused water to stream into Chen Ji's nostrils, choking the man alive. Chen Ji struggled vehemently as the cleavers in his hands waved frantically above. The black shadow flickered like an image on an old television. The cleavers affected him but only slightly. At the most crucial moment, the ragdolls that were placed around the bathtub started to teeter like they were being blown by winds. The smallest among them tipped over and used its body to block the palm-sized mirror piece completely. The black shadow's body started to blur. It was then that Chen Ji's cleaver inadvertently made contact with its head, and the shadow disappeared. The cleaver flew out of Chen Ji's grasp, and before it landed on the floor, it scratched the edge of the bathtub, leaving a light mark. Almost at the same time, Chen Ji burst through the water surface. The video ended then. After knowing the truth, the desire within Chen Ji's heart to demolish that creature intensified. The thing has to be vanquished. Chen Ji saved the video and picked up the ragdoll that was lying on top of the mirror. The small girl's back had been cut by the sharp edge of the mirror, and her body was drenched. They're both existence from the other side, but their personalities are completely different. Some of them are just in it for the scare, and they're good at heart, while others harbor nothing but malice. Chen Ji dried his body and put on his clothes. He placed all the dolls inside his pocket, and it was then that he felt better. Shattering the mirrors is useless. It can still crawl out of the mirror, so how am I supposed to deal with a creature like this? The thing can appear and disappear at will and can't be found. I'm at a natural disadvantage dealing with things like this. Chen Ji picked up the palm-sized mirror out of curiosity, but he was shocked to realize the water droplets on it seemed to be moving with a will of their own. They trailed across the surface forming a number 3. Is this a taunt from the monster? 3, representing He-San, He-Feng, and myself. Or will it kill me within 3 days? Chen Ji had no clue what the number meant, but he was certain it wouldn't be anything good. Then again, do you really think I am afraid of you? One of these days, I'll yank you out of the mirror and put you out in the sun to scorch you alive. Chen Ji came up with the worst curse he could think of. He had come so close to dying earlier. After taking another deep breath, Chen Ji went to pick up the black phone. He did not have much anticipation, but when he saw the message that appeared on screen, his eyes lit up. The specters favored, you managed to hold your breath for 62 seconds. Congratulations for completing the nightmare mission. Obtain the mission reward, Yin Yang Vision. Yin Yang Vision, see through the line that blurs between the two worlds. Use the Yang body to observe the Yin presence, a great upgrade to one's vision, other function currently unknown. Notice, you have completed 2 nightmare daily missions. After completing the 3rd nightmare mission, it will randomly unlock the trial mission for one of the scenarios. Completed 3 consecutive missions with more than a 95% completion rate, unlocking new feature, my friends from the other side affection status. After reading through the series of messages, Chen Ji did not know what he should feel. The requirement of the nightmare mission was for him to hold his breath for 60 seconds. Due to the outside disturbance, he had already planned to surrender at around 50 or so seconds, and he would have failed the mission. However, the desire of the mirror monster to kill him had forced him to hold on for an additional few seconds, allowing him to complete the mission with a very close success. In a way, the appearance of the mirror monster was a blessing in disguise because in the end, the result was positive. Chen Ji went through the black phone and realized how crucial this nightmare mission was. If he had failed the mission, not only would he not have earned the mission reward, the unlocking of the new scenario would have been delayed, and most importantly, the new function of the phone would not have been unlocked. Compelled by curiosity, Chen Ji clicked the new tab open. The interface changed, and 5 unfamiliar names appeared on screen. Current affection levels. Qin Guoing, lingering spirit, unfamiliar, you two can't be considered friends, he was helping you out of kindness. Du Ruoshui, lingering spirit, unfamiliar. Qin Munin, lingering spirit, unfamiliar. Qin Shaoxiao, baleful specter, slightly favorable opinion, you've managed to attract her attention. To her, you are slightly closer than a stranger. Zhangya, red specter, crazy about you, you are a unique presence to her, she likes you, but only after you're dead. To increase the affection level, you could expose them to the screams of visitors that are wealthy with negative feelings, gift them presents that contain malice points, or complete their bloody heart mission. When the affection level reaches a certain point, they will selectively listen to your orders. Warning: only specters with deep malice and a dark history will be able to provide you with a bloody heart mission. Completing the mission will greatly increase the affection level and will give you the power to get them to help you complete something that isn't against their will. The new feature gave Chen Ji a deeper understanding of his friends. He removed the smallest doll from his pocket. This doll did not look that much different from the other dolls, at least physically, but the phone app had set her apart. She was the sole baleful specter among the family of lingering spirits. Something like you can be considered a baleful spirit. Chen Ji poked Xiaoxiao's cheek with his finger. Xiaoxiao, who was raised into the air, seemed to be a bit angry. She gave Chen Ji the impression of a little kitten who hadn't been weaned from milk, gnashing her teeth in a show of aggression. I suppose this is an accidental discovery. If Qin Shaoxiao was the kind and gentle presence among the baleful specter, then Zhangya was the complete opposite. In fact, this was the first time Chen Ji had come across the term red specter. What exactly is the difference between a normal baleful specter and a red specter? Chen Ji tried to click on Zhang Ya's name, and the screen changed to reveal a blood-red interface. Are you sure you want to accept Zhang Ya's bloody heart mission? Warning: this mission contains a certain level of danger. The blood-red interface caused cold sweat to appear all over Chen Ji's forehead. But the phone says only specters with exceptionally deep malice and a dark history will be able to provide me with a bloody heart mission. Am I that lucky to be able to win such a prize from my first draw? Actually, that was not the end of Chen Ji's thoughts on the matter. He thought to himself, if that's the case, I'd rather give up on such luck. However, afraid of how Zhangya might have reacted if she heard it, he kept it to himself. Crazy about me, but only after I'm dead. If that's not twisted, I don't know what is. After exiting the app, the fear brought on by the mirror monster had completely disappeared. Compared to the prize he had gotten from the Wheel of Misfortune, the shadow inside the mirror was nothing. However, this did not mean that Chen Ji would let it go. In contrast, Chen Ji had made it a threat that had to be removed no matter what. Only by removing it would the haunted house be safe. Unlocking my friends from the other side provided Chen Ji with more options. From how he saw it, this feature was to set up the foundation for the haunted house's spectral workers. As more features of the game got released, Chen Ji's interest in it increased. After gaining an understanding of the new feature, Chen Ji turned to inspect his second reward, Yin Yang Vision. The reward from nightmare missions would provide him with a personal upgrade. Chen Ji tried to look into the distance, but other than the ability to see slightly clearer in the dark, this yin-yang vision did not seem to have any other uses. Perhaps this power requires a special environment to trigger, just like morticians make up. Chen Ji picked up a random mirror fragment from the floor and put it before his face. Physically speaking, there was not any noticeable change to his pair of eyes, they were similar to before. From the description, yin-yang vision should grant me the ability to see stuff that normal people wouldn't be able to see, but... Chen Ji raised Xiaoxiao to his eyes, but he saw nothing but a normal ragdoll. Am I using it wrong, or is there a specific method to using the power? Chen Ji came up with nothing after some more trials, so he decided to put it on the back burner for now. Working his limbs, which had gone numb, Chen Ji stretched inside the bathroom. Then, he sat down inside the bathroom to edit his latest video. I've suffered so much. I wouldn't be able to face myself in the morning if I didn't share it with the world. He uploaded the original video onto the Supernatural forum. It was 4 a.m., so Chen Ji didn't expect any responses. However, the moment the new video was released, there was already a new comment. Hello, is this a game to attract ghosts? Lying inside the bathroom at midnight will call out the spirits. Chen Ji glanced at the first comment and was shocked to realize it came from the forum moderator. He contemplated it for a while before adding the game rules and descriptions under the video and editing the name of the video to "Why would someone voluntarily drown himself in his bathtub at home?" 2 minutes later, the comment floodgate had been opened. Chen Ji's account had garnered quite a following already on the forum. In fact, some of the users who were already asleep were woken up by their friends just to take a look at the video. Lying inside a filled bathtub at 3:30 a.m. alone, even with the lights on, I wouldn't dare do that. This new video seems to be even more supernatural than the previous one. What the FCK is the shadow squatting beside the bathtub? Did you hear anything or see anything out of the ordinary under the water? Boss, please reply. The bathroom is the place with the heaviest yin energy of the entire building, and the bathtub is a sort of hollow where yin energy normally gathers. In feng shui, we call this Hua. OP dares to play such a crazy game at a place like this, no wonder he stumbled across dirty stuff. To linger at the line between life and death as the night changes into day, probably only a madman could come up with an idea like this, and only a madman would follow through with it. There were a few informational replies on the forum. Chen Ji gave them a cursory read, and similar to before, he did not reply. Instead, he logged out to start editing the video footage. He cut out his final struggle at the end of the video, and the product he ended up with was 63 seconds long. For short videos, the best were those that were shorter but had more shock value. However, Chen Ji went against the grain this time. He uploaded a video that was 63 seconds long and named it 1 Minute Holding Breath Challenge. After releasing the video, those who followed Chen Ji were notified, and some already commented without watching the video. Breath Holding Challenge. There's no scary video today. What is this? Even a drinking challenge would be more interesting than this. Is this some new challenge? I'm going to give it a try, too. It's all over, the host's talent has run out. What the FCK? What is that thing I saw lying beside the tub? Get the FCK out of my phone. 1 minute after the video was posted, Chen Ji's comment section exploded again. The shadow leaning against the tub 56 seconds in is a special effect, right? It seems to crawl up from underneath the tub. The person waving the cleavers in the video is the host himself. Someone get him an Oscar. If the black shadow had held on any longer, host wouldn't be with us anymore. FCK this SHT. I was trying to hold my breath as I started the video, but this thing popped up halfway. Run while you still can. The host only shares ghost videos. Run and don't look back. After staring at my phone for a full minute, I realized I am not going to sleep tonight. After your last video, I didn't dare look at the mirror anymore, and after this video, I won't dare take a bath alone anymore. Heartless host, taste this piledriver from me. Chen Ji was glad that his video had such a good reception even though it was 4 a.m. Feeling the love his fans had for him, he realized everything was worth it. Before closing the video app, Chen Ji did not forget to put up an advertisement for his haunted house. The fans were quick to respond, leaving messages saying they would visit him with some local delicacies. Buying tickets to visit the haunted house and, on top of that, wanting to gift me local delicacies, the visitors today sure are nice. After Chen Ji exited the app, he felt much better. He stretched lazily once more and left the murder by midnight scenario, hugging the 5 dolls to his chest. The night soon passed, and dawn arrived. The sky outside the haunted house started to brighten. Chen Ji found several wooden planks from the props room. He nailed them entrance and the trap door that was connected to the murder by midnight scenario. Before he dealt with the mirror monster, he did not plan to use that scenario. 20 a ticket, and murder by midnight can fit 7 visitors at one time. If one run is counted as 15 minutes, I'll be able to gain a profit of 560 RMB per hour. One day's work is 8 hours, so that translates to more than 4,000 RMB. The thought squeezed Chen Ji's heart with pain, but he was not blinded by greed. Safety's first. There'll be more to earn after future scenarios are unlocked. After sealing up the scenario, Chen Ji returned to the staff break room. He placed the dolls beside his bed and changed into his running attire. The trial mission reminded Chen Ji of the fact that if not for his occasional training, he would have been buried under the ground then. Shu Wan arrived for work at around 8:40 am. She was surprised to see Chen Ji around the corner with his head full of sweat. In her mind, her boss was not someone who was into exercising. The gate of the haunted house swung open, signifying the arrival of a new workday. The 2 workers stood at their assigned posts, ready to start the operation. At 9 a.m., the visitors started to enter the park, but the entrance of the haunted house was still quite empty. It was the most vacant spot of all the attractions inside New Century Park. Boss, what did you do inside the haunted house last night? Why are there water puddles all over the place? I was mopping the floor. Chen Ji gave a random excuse before adding, when you are acting as a ghost, remember to stay far away from any mirrors. Why? Chen Ji was about to explain it to her when he saw Uncle Shu, the park manager, walking toward them. Uncle Shu, is there a problem? Chen Ji removed the ear mic. He realized Uncle Shu did not have a very pleased expression. You are just getting weirder by the days. Uncle Shu studied Chen Ji up and down. Just now, the people from the canteen came to me to report that they are missing their cleavers. I was just wondering which thief would be so odd to only steal 2 cleavers. After looking at the surveillance, I have just one question to ask. Why weren't you asleep at night but snuck into the canteen to steal their cleavers? Is it that fun running around waving 2 cleavers? Uncle Shu reminded Chen Ji that the cleavers he had taken from the canteen were still left inside the bathtub. I just helped the police solve an open case, right? But one of the killers is still missing, so the cleavers are for self-protection. Don't worry, I'll buy the canteen new cleavers tomorrow. Chen Ji had no clue whether blades that had touched a ghost before could still be used for culinary purposes, so he didn't think it was wise to return the cleavers to Uncle Shu. It's getting harder and harder to understand you. Kid, tell me honestly. Are you involved in some illegal dealings behind my back? What kind of illegal dealings can I get into with 2 cleavers? I'm not doing anything criminal, Uncle Shu, don't worry. Uncle Shu was only half convinced. However, since the park had just opened for the day, he had too many things to deal with to get into it with Chen Ji. He took a step closer to Chen Ji and pulled out a tightly wrapped plastic case from his pocket. Here is 5,000, if you have any trouble, please come to me. Uncle Shu, thank you so much. I'll return you the money this weekend. Just stop making trouble for me, that'll be more than enough repayment. After Uncle Shu left, Chen Ji shoved the money inside his shirt. He leaned against the gate, thinking about how to utilize this money. 5,000 should be just enough to install some cameras. However, the interior space of the haunted house is now all occupied. I'll need to expand before I can unlock new scenarios. Renting the underground parking lot is not a bad idea, but I wonder how much the management will charge me. Chen Ji had a mounting headache from the many problems he realized he was facing. The biggest problem I have is a lack of money. The reward money is still nowhere to be seen. Should I try to hurry them? He turned to look in the direction of the police station. When his gaze scanned a certain corner, his pupils narrowed, and his gaze centered on a curious visitor. The man was wearing a cap low on his head and a long-sleeved top with 2 hands stuck inside his pockets. He wandered between several attractions as if deciding which one he should try. That person looked so familiar. Due to yin-yang vision, Chen Ji's vision was better than most. The person probably did not know he had been exposed. Shall I go stop him? Just as Chen Ji was contemplating that, he had a group of visitors who wanted to visit the haunted house. He threw himself into work, and the suspicious visitor was thus tossed out of his mind. When Xu Wan and Chen Ji were about to go for their lunch break, he once again spotted the suspicious man loitering near the haunted house. The man hasn't come near the haunted house the whole morning, but he came over just as me and Xu Wan are planning to go for lunch. What is he up to? Chen Ji had Xu Wan leave first. He returned to the haunted house. When the visitor noticed his return, he turned around and left the park without even turning back. Have I seen him somewhere before? Chen Ji's eyelid twitched, a sign of a bad omen. Chen Ji decided to skip lunch and headed for the park security center. After getting the guard's permission, he went to search for this suspicious visitor's footage. It was quite obvious that the man was purposely avoiding the cameras. From his arrival to his departure, the man had kept his hands inside his pockets. Even when he stopped for a smoke break, he had only used one hand to light the cigarette that he kept dangled on his lips. However, the most suspicious part was that after paying for entry, he only rode one attraction. That was the Ferris wheel, and he rode it 3 times in a row. This person is definitely suspicious. Chen Ji's fingers slowly tightened as he linked the series of unusual actions together. Without saying a word, he pulled out his phone to call Inspector Li's number at Western Jiujiang City's police station while standing in the security office. The phone rang twice before Inspector Li's gravelly voice came through the line. Hello. Uncle Sanbao, I need to report something to the police. 1. You'll need to call 110 for that. 2. My name is Inspector Li. I found the last fugitive from Ping'an Apartments. He was at New Century Park. When he heard that, Inspector Lee's voice changed. You sure? Yes, I am, but please don't come in your police car, you'll spook him, and he'll go on the run. Be there in 15 minutes. After ending the call, Chen-ji held the phone in his hand as he stared at the surveillance footage. The guards also realized something was wrong, and they hurried to call Uncle Shu. What's going on? After a while, Uncle Shu rushed over, sipping from his water bottle. Can I not have my lunch in peace? Xiao Chen, why are you here and not at your haunted house? He glanced at the surveillance footage. When he saw the phone in Chen-ji's hand, he asked cautiously, who were you on the phone with? The police. Chen-ji did not turn to look at Uncle Shu as his eyes jumped between the many surveillance cameras. They'll be here in another 15 minutes. Police. Why didn't you discuss this with me first? Uncle Xu's voice went up a pitch. The park management has its own way of dealing with robberies, natural disaster. Uncle Shu. Chen-ji turned around to interrupt Uncle Shu. His eyes were incongruently calm and collected considering the words that fell out of his lips. Someone is trying to kill me. When he announced that, the security room became silent, and all the guards whipped their heads around to look at him. Chen-ji, have you been mentally affected from living inside the haunted house for too long? Uncle Shu did not call him Xiao Chen like usual but used Chen-ji, which he reserved for serious occasions only. What nonsense are you talking about in broad daylight? I helped the police solve the arson case at Ping'an Apartments, but one of the murderers is still on the loose. Uncle Shu understood what Chen-ji was getting at then. You mean that person is now inside the park and is out for revenge? I thought he would escape the region to hide, but who would have thought the man was so courageous? Chen-ji pointed at the man on screen. This visitor is acting too strangely. His cap is too low, meaning he's trying to hide his face. Plus, today is not a cold day, but he's wearing a long-sleeve shirt, and he kept his hands inside his pocket throughout. Even when he was smoking or drinking water, he only used his right hand, and he kept his left hand firmly inside the pocket. That might be so, but none of that proves anything. Perhaps those are just his personal quirks. Uncle Shu put down the water bottle and walked to close the security room door. The fugitive's name is Zhang Peng, his build is exact same as that of the man on screen. Most importantly, there is the tattoo of a peony on the back of his hand. Peony. The flower of good fortune. The man is a down-on-his-luck gambler who has lost everything. Meaning he kept his left hand hidden because it would expose the tattoo. Uncle Shu was slowly convinced by Chen-ji's story. Could it be that the man has some weird skin disease that he doesn't want anyone to see? I have other proof. Chen-ji switched the video footage. After entering the park, he only visited one attraction, the Ferris wheel, and he went on it 3 times in a row. Do you know what that represents? What does that represent? Uncle Shu was slowly lagging behind. The Ferris wheel provides the best vantage point of the park. He was trying to find the best escape route for himself. Chen-ji slowed down the footage. When Shu Wan and I left the haunted house to go to the canteen, I saw him sneak toward the haunted house. You can see from the video footage that he wandered around the haunted house the whole morning but didn't approach it. He only did so after ensuring that Shu Wan and myself had left. This is definitely not the normal way a visitor would act. You're right. Uncle Shu nodded, convinced by Chen-ji's argument. But why would he go near the haunted house only when no one is there? Chen-ji tapped his fingers on the table. If I were in his shoes, planning to kill the owner of a haunted house, I would definitely stake out the place first to familiarize myself with the building's layout. Perhaps I could hide inside the haunted house and wait for the place to close for maintenance, then I could jump at my target without him anticipating my arrival. Furthermore, a haunted house is the perfect place to hide a body. If the blood stains are taken care of, when the body is discovered, it will most likely be the next day already. Uncle Shu got chills listening to Chen-ji's speculation. There was a scene forming in his mind already. Now that you mention it, it is quite scary. The scariest thing is that it almost happened. Chen-ji pulled his gaze back, and his bald fist slowly relaxed. Thankfully, he has acted too rashly. Plus, my senses have been maintained at an all-time high due to the many weird events that have been happening. That's the only reason I managed to spot him. Then, where is he now? Shall I alert the other visitors? Uncle Shu finally understood the gravity of the situation. He has already left the park after he was discovered. At the time, I still hadn't seen the footage, so I was not confident with my speculation. That's why I didn't stop him. You did well. If the suspect went berserk inside the park, it would have caused great chaos. Uncle Shu took a sip of the water and told the guards beside him, "Remember to cooperate with the police when they arrive later." 10 minutes later, the door to the security room was pushed open. 3 men in casual attire strode into the room. The one leading was Li Sanbao. "Where's Chen Ji? Let me see your surveillance footage." With the aid of the guards, Inspector Li compared the man in the video to the police station's database and finally managed to confirm the two were one and the same. "Kid, you've done society another great service." Inspector Li smacked Chen Ji on his back before pulling out his phone to contact the station to report on the situation. After some discussion, they decided to split into 2 teams. One was going to conduct a secret investigation while the other would surround New Century Park and observe from afar. Zhang Peng is an extremely dangerous individual. You have to be careful since you're being targeted. The probability of him coming back is very high, so I suggest you stay away from the haunted house for the time being. After hearing what Inspector Li had to say, all the guards felt uneasy. Chen Ji, however, was surprisingly unfazed. "If I'm not there, Xiao Wan alone won't be able to keep the haunted house open. If I close the haunted house, Zhang Peng will definitely know that gig is up. He'll go on the run then." "You mean, you're planning to stay at the haunted house as bait?" Inspector Li frowned slightly, thinking this plan was far too dangerous. "Don't worry, if he dares come inside my haunted house, I guarantee he won't be leaving anytime soon." "I'm afraid I cannot agree to that." Inspector Li shook his head. "Capturing a fugitive is the police's responsibility. How can we allow you to take this unnecessary risk? Staying behind at the haunted house is merely to create a false image for Zhang Peng to think he hasn't been exposed. This way, he'll follow through his plan to seek me out. When he returns to the park, you will be able to detain him," Chen Ji explained after much contemplation. "If we fail to catch him this time, I'll need to spend the rest of my life in fear, looking over my shoulder every moment, since he could strike at any given time. In any case, the actual plan will have to be decided only after we discuss it with the city's investigation team. The case at Ping and Apartments is their responsibility. We from the Western Station are merely providing assistance, but I will relay your request to them." Inspector Li packed up his laptop and made a call before leaving the security room with the 2 other officers. Uncle Shu wandered over after the police left. He was worried about Chen Ji. "Xiao Chen, I think you should listen to the police and go find somewhere else other than the haunted house to stay for a few days. Hiding from the problem is not going to solve anything, but I appreciate the concern, Uncle Shu." After taking another look at the surveillance, Chen Ji returned to the haunted house. Xu Wan was leaning against the gate, and when she saw Chen Ji walk toward her from the security office, she pointed at the boxed rice left on the table. "Boss, today's menu is stir-fried green chili with pork and rice. When the canteen auntie wasn't paying attention, I added another scoop of meat for you." Chen Ji thanked Xiao Wan for the rice. He looked at the girl but decided not to reveal any information about Zhang Peng. He finished the rice with big mouthfuls and began the afternoon service. Xu Wan acted as the ghost inside the Mingun scenario while Chen Ji stayed at the entrance to sell tickets. He kept his head low, but his eyes swept every corner of the park. Zhang Peng's appearance can be a curse or a blessing depending on how I use him. After completing several missions on the black phone, Chen Ji's logical thinking had improved tremendously, and his tolerance for stress had been given a power-up. There's a mirror monster hiding inside the haunted house currently. The thing can pass through the mirror world and reality freely. In other words, if there's a mirror, it is invincible. Chen Ji sold the ticket mechanically while his brain worked on overdrive to process the information. The attacks on He San and He Feng were very similar. Based on He Feng's description, the monster's aim was to possess their body and swap out their consciousness. Temporarily, we have no idea what the purpose of that is, but one thing worth considering is, if the monster enters a person's body, does that mean that it won't be able to escape the body at least for a short period of time? Chen Ji had discovered this phenomenon when he conversed with He Feng, but there was no danger-free method to test out this theory. He had prepared to give up on this idea, but then Zhang Peng had decided to show himself that morning. When he confirmed it was Zhang Peng on the camera, the plan had been settled in Chen Ji's mind. He planned to use Zhang Peng as bait. He had to figure out a way to lure Zhang Peng inside the haunted house and enable the mirror monster to possess his body. This way, he could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It was also why he insisted on staying at the haunted house. This is the plan. It's dangerous, but if it's successful, I'll be able to remove 2 threats at once. At 5 p.m., Chen Ji called Xu Wan out and let her leave early. He went back inside the haunted house to prepare various stuff for Zhang Peng. At 5:30 p.m., Chen Ji received a call from Inspector Li, telling him that the police had set up a perimeter around New Century Park. If Zhang Peng showed himself, he would definitely not get away. After dinner, Chen Ji carried Dr. Skullcracker's outfit and hammer as he entered the haunted house's main control room. He locked the door and sat before the monitors. If there was no accident, he was going to spend the whole night inside the room. There are indeed too few cameras. There are too many blind spots, so I mustn't let my guard down. The sun dipped below the horizon, and as daylight left, New Century Park felt weirdly eerie. Chen Ji wrapped the outfit around him as a cover as he sat inside the control room. At midnight, those who should not be there had arrived, but those who should have been there had not. Similar to the previous night, the sound of sawing came from the murder by midnight scenario. Is the creature taunting me? Chen Ji shrugged the outfit off and walked to the door, wondering if he should go meet the creature. I'll let it be for now. Putting back on the ear mic, Chen Ji hugged the doll left behind by his parents to his chest and returned to the surveillance monitor. At around 1 a.m., when Chen Ji was at the verge of giving up, he saw the door to the bathroom rattle on screen. Someone's there. He focused on the monitor, completely rejuvenated. Not long after, the door fell open. A sliver and a lanky man wielding a 20-centimeter-long boning knife slipped through the opening. That bathroom is where I did my first nightmare mission. The window leads outside. He probably prepared some stepping stone beforehand and messed with the lock earlier. Chen Ji looked at the surveillance calmly. The door to the control room was still locked. The control room's location was well hidden, and those unfamiliar with the haunted house's layout would not be able to reach it anytime soon. On screen, Zhang Peng traveled down the corridor, holding the knife in one hand and his phone in another. He had no idea he was being watched as he focused on sidestepping the random stuff and unknown props that littered the corridor. After 15 minutes traversing the obstacle course, Zhang Peng finally reached the staff break room. He could be seen hesitating at the door. His chest rose and fell unevenly, and his hand that held the knife shivered. He reached out to push on the door multiple times, but every time, he pulled back just before his finger touched the door. It was obvious that he was caught in a conundrum. Zhang Peng dithered for about 20 seconds before he came to a decision. He did not even notice the camera that was looking at him. He raised the knife in one hand while the other grabbed the doorknob. With a deep breath, he shoved the door open, and like a leopard pouncing on its prey, he jumped into the break room. 1 minute later, Zhang Peng came out carrying the knife. There was a bit of red on the blade. He seemed to have accidentally slashed his arm. He tossed the knife to his other hand. Zhang Peng's expression turned more grievous. He glanced at the stairs before picking up the pace as he went down the corridor. From the surveillance feed, Chen Ji could see Zhang Peng was heading toward the control room. Chen Ji messaged Inspector Li and held Dr. Skullcracker's hammer as he hid behind the door. He was about to surprise Zhang Peng with a horror movie classic, The Scare Behind the Door, but Zhang Peng merely wandered past the control room's door before heading into the workers' passageway. What is this man up to? Chen Ji was confused by his opponent's actions. He hurried to the monitor and saw that Zhang Peng was using his knife to pry off the wooden planks that had sealed up the trap door at the end of passageway before heading in without a second thought. Why is he heading into the murder by midnight scenario? Chen Ji peeled off his ear mic as his eyes widened with shock. There have been sawing sounds coming out from the scenario. Does he think I'm sawing stuff inside? Chen Ji's features twisted as Zhang Peng's vicious and obstinate glare appeared in his mind. Two demons fighting each other. The sawing sound from the murder by midnight scenario did not stop due to Zhang Peng's entrance. The mirror monster probably did not anticipate that someone would rush in so blindly and rashly. I can't play it safe any longer. I have to see the mirror monster enter Zhang Peng's body with my own eyes before I can sleep easy at night. With a glance at the surveillance to pinpoint Zhang Peng's location, Chen Ji yanked out the chains from the Dr. Skullcracker outfit and dropped them to the floor before putting both the outfit and the skin mask on. He waved the iron hammer twice to get a feel for it, and a wicked energy radiated from Chen Ji. How come it feels like I'm the bad guy here? After grabbing his keys and phone, he shoved the dolls into his pocket, grabbed hold of the weirdly designed hammer, and headed out of the control room. Trapped inside the murder by midnight scenario, Zhang Peng felt the weight of the knife in his hand getting heavier. He had prepared for this day for a long time, but one could never prepare enough because accidents had already happened. It was already 1 a.m., and a normal person would be asleep already. Even if they were not, they would be resting in their bedroom. He was all sorts of excited when he saw the sign that pointed to the staff break room. It had taken him a long time before he managed to calm down. He had given himself plenty of pep talk to arouse the hatred and resentment within himself before he gathered enough courage to blast through the door. As he did so, he had waved the knife fiendishly at the bed. He had been so caught in the motion that he did not notice he had slashed himself. The blade was tipped with blood, but there was no one inside the bed. The only blood stain on the ruined bedspread came from his arm. Other than resentment, there was now an additional stain of grievance. It fueled his murderous intent, eclipsing his rationality completely. Ruining paying in apartments, sending Wanner into jail. You despicable bastard, I swear I'll kill you if it's the last thing I do. The more Zhang Peng thought about it, the angrier he became. The sawing sound from upstairs was like flies, causing his emotions to rile up even more. He gripped his knife tightly as he wandered close to the source. To prevent being found out, he was extremely careful along the way. I'm close, the source is from this floor. Zhang Peng poked his head out from the stairs. He did not carry any light source with him. He kept his back to the wall as he entered the third-floor corridor. I say, this haunted house sure is creepy. The corridors are as complicated as a maze. After I kill him, even if I just drop his body inside a random room, it'll take at least half a month before he's discovered. His lips curled up into a cruel smirk. The sound is coming from in front. But what is the man up to? Not sleeping so late at night but sewing stuff. Fixing some emergency props. Zhang Peng bent down. He used the long sleeves to cover his wound as he crawled forward with the point of the knife leading the way forward. At the end of the third-floor corridor, the entrance to the scenario, Zhang Peng saw a blurry black shadow. The shadow was standing in the middle of the door, holding something in his hand, scratching on the door. Weird, why didn't he turn on the lights? It was not until he was so close that Zhang Peng realized this incongruity. However, he did not dwell on it because his mind was soon swallowed up by the desire for revenge. The air seemed to have frozen around him. He slowly raised the knife above his shoulder. His body was as tense as a strong bow, and he charged forward to stab at the shadow. Go to hell. The full-speed sprint sent Zhang Peng and the knife crashing into the shadow. An excited smile had begun to appear on his face, but it only lasted for 0.2 seconds before it disappeared. The knife shot through the shadow directly. The inertia caused Zhang Peng to slam into the door headfirst, and he almost broke his waist from the impact. What the FCK? Zhang Peng was unable to accept this result. He climbed up from the floor in a hurry and waved the knife frantically around him. Where is he? Where is he? After his anger left him, a sensation that he had not experienced before started to grow within Zhang Peng's heart. I swear I saw a black shadow standing here. My eyes weren't mistaken. Zhang Peng no longer cared about hiding his tracks. He pulled out his phone to light up his surroundings. The door was crisscrossed with scratch marks, and several sharp mirror pieces littered the ground. This was all left behind by the dark shadow, so I was right, there was someone standing here earlier. So, where in the world did he go? Zhang Peng shivered from head to toe. His anger had been completely drenched as he looked fearfully down the darkened corridor that suddenly felt so eerie. A man can't just disappear from thin air unless that wasn't a normal man. His Adam's apple wiggled, and the weak light from the phone could no longer bring him a sense of security. If anything, the weak light only heightened his fear, like there were monsters hiding in the corners where the light could not reach. The haunted house's owner isn't a living person. This haunted house is really haunted. Zhang Peng's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Even his hand that gripped the knife was soaked with sweat. Any thought of revenge and murder had completely left his mind. He dashed down the corridor hurriedly. All he had on his mind then was to escape this blasted place. In his hurry to escape, he did not notice the angle of the staircase door was different from how he had left it before. Revenge can be replanned after I leave this place. Holding his wounded arm, Zhang Peng jumped into the staircase, when a shadow flitted out from behind the door and assaulted him. The sound of bone cracking was crisp to the ear. Zhang Peng held his right arm that seemed to be dying, and his brain went into shutdown. Sorry, I missed. Chen Ji wandered out from behind the door. The creepy skin mask twisted with a display of myriad expressions as Chen Ji's lips moved. I was aiming for your shoulder blade. Chen Ji's tone was indifferent, like he was talking about the weather. Looking at Chen Ji, Zhang Peng felt like he was about to suffocate. Jesus, Buddha, Allah, someone please help me. Zhang Peng did try to resist, but when he saw the 40-centimeter-long hammer in Chen Ji's hands, his limbs refused to listen to his commands. The hammer is covered with blood, and the handle has the shape of a human spine. Are you that afraid people won't know that you're a mad murderer? Without giving his opponent much time to recover, Chen Ji picked up the hammer and swung it at Zhang Peng's leg. He needed someone who was completely defenseless to be the vessel for the mirror monster. Bang! The bars on the stairs curved from impact. Zhang Peng evaded the attack at the last minute. With one arm bleeding and another incapacitated, Zhang Peng had given up on resistance. He even dropped his knife as he ran down the stairs. You dare visit my haunted house with such lack of courage. Grabbing the iron hammer, Chen Ji gave chase after his prey as the two of them returned to the first floor. Like and subscribe. Please. Do not try, attempt or execute anything that was stated in the audio. It may bring harm to you or other people that was involved.